Hi, Christine. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm wonderful. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's awesome to see your smiling face again. Thank you so much for making time this morning and coming here and giving us a little bit of education on financing. So, if today we're going to talk about interesting, creative ways to combat these increasing interest rates and how to make housing still affordable. And so, Christine, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, just anything you want to share with us?
Yes, I'm Christine. I do mortgages. I'm here in the Jacksonville area, Florida, and been in the business 25 years. So really long time.
You've seen a thing or two, right?
Seen- I've seen what we're going to talk about today, the three ways of being creative. This is not my first time, shifting markets and shifting gears, helping buyers and sellers in different ways. Right? We change our strategy right now, and then we'll change it back in 6 months. We'll change it another way in 6 more months. But for now, we're going to talk about some great options to help some people that they might not necessarily know about.
Yeah, even as real estate professionals, I know on our end, we're kind of what options are available for us? What are we doing? How can we get creative? How can we help out our buyers? And I'll probably ask some questions even too about like sellers and like on
Yeah.
their side, maybe help them list and sell their homes. So yeah, if you're ready to get jumping and started, let's jump right into it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, cool. So I think the first program we want to talk about is the program that everybody's kind of throwing around and just talking about the 2-1 buy down program. I've been in real estate for just over 6 years, and so this really wasn't something that we had talked about until about the last 4 months. All of a sudden, I saw this program come out, and I'm like, "What is this thing?" So, can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's so great. It is kind of a new program. It's a temporary buy down, meaning the sellers would temporarily buy down the buyer's interest rate. It's really great. So just say even numbers, rates are currently at 6. The seller could either buy it down 1% for the first year, so they could buy it down to 5, or they could buy it down 2% for the first year. So they could buy it down to 4, and then it would be 1% the second year. So it would be for 2 years, the rate's going to be 2% lower. And then the second year is going to be 1% lower. And then the third year, it would go up to the normal rate.
Gotcha.
So whatever their rate is, when the buyer is talking to their mortgage person, whatever the rate is for today, it'd be 2% lower the first year and 1% lower the second.
Gotcha.
It's straight principal and interest reduction. It's just straight. And the cost to the seller is the difference that the buyer is saving. So it's really a great way to get buyers in for a lower payment
Gotcha.
for the first, and so that really helps.
Now, so you said sellers, can like buyers buy into that? Can they? No.
No, it has to be the seller
Gotcha.
or the builder. So like our builders can do it. That's what a lot of them are pitching, that they're
Yeah.
buying down,
And
or a
so,
seller can do it.
so let's say we're playing with the scenario of 6%, and so it's
Pick a
4%.
number.
So then is it actually a 4% loan, or is it a 6% loan with that interest getting covered? So it's kind of transparent to the buyer. How does that work?
The note, the interest
Mhm.
rate would be 6%.
Okay.
What the buyer signs at closing is 6%.
Okay.
But what happens is the seller at closing would give the money to the buyer, which would really be the lender, and then the lender sticks it into a separate escrow account. So when they see their statement, when they get their monthly statement each month, they're going to see buy down escrow account. It's not escrow, it's a buy down account. And then each month, if say that savings was $300 for that month, instead of the 6%, they'll make their payments on the 4%. And that payment each month will just come out of that extra buy down account.
That's pretty cool. And now, can this be done on any loan? So, like, because I know routinely I work with a lot of veterans and people that are using their VA loans. Can a veteran use this?
No, we're going to talk about what they can use. There is
Okay.
a program for them that's separate, but this program, the temporary buy down, is only going to be for conventional buyers.
Gotcha.
This is only conventional. And if this buyer, they don't lose the money. So say they ended up refinancing or having to relocate in 6 months, that money is not gone. It will just come back to them at the end. So it's real money that goes into an account, and they don't lose it. It is their money. So even if they pay off the loan in 1 year, it would just come back to them.
Gotcha. So let's say next year or in 2 years from now, the interest rates are no longer 6%, they're maybe 4.5%, 4%. Let's just say something like that happens. And they had taken advantage of this 2-1 buy down program. You said they can refinance and go into that lower interest rate, and then they can take that money that was already in that, essentially a piggy bank. And what is that money? Does it get returned to them in a check, or does it go into an escrow account, or?
It would come off the principal reduction.
Oh,
so
no
maybe
kidding.
they owed $300,000 and they had $5,000 in their buy down, they would owe $295.
Wow, that's nice. That's a good gig. Okay.
So where this would help our sellers is what they could advertise on the MLS. They could talk, or they can put flyers that the sellers are willing to buy down the buyer's rate. So if we do have somebody says, oh, wow, rates are so high right now, that's okay. The seller is willing to give you money to get your lower rate. So then so it's a great way to help the buyer. So it helps the seller be different, be original, come up with a different topic, say something that maybe something hasn't heard. They can put it on MLS. Hey, I want to sell my house. And instead of doing a price reduction, right? Instead of taking your price down whatever percent, they can just budget on giving 3%. It's not really 3%. It's the difference in the payment, but they can take that money and give it to the buyer. And that would help the seller be different. We want to be different. And then it would help the buyer lower their payment.
Yeah. Now, do you have any type of rule of thumb associated with how much and one percentage point drops in your monthly P&I?
It depends. So the real example that we did, 1% for the $200,000 loan is $125 a month. And then 2% is $245 a month.
Okay.
So that's on 200,000. Obviously 300,000 is going to be, 400,000 is going to be double that in savings. So the more that they're buying in the house, the more of a savings they're going to have monthly.
Yeah. Because that $240 a month, that's actually a pretty big price difference, because typically the rule of thumb I use for, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but typically for every $50-ish you spend, it's about $10,000 on the price tag. Is that about right?
Yes.
So yeah, so you said 240. I'll just divide that by 50 times 10. So you're talking a difference about $48,000 in the price of a home that they can purchase with that
initially gives them more house, right?
Now, when you guys qualify somebody for that loan, do you base it off the 6% off and then 3? Okay.
Because during the 30 years, it's going to go back up. So we would make sure that they qualify.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's just like an adjustable mortgage. When we do an adjustable mortgage and it starts a little bit lower, we still qualify them on the max note rate that it will be. We always want to make sure that they can qualify.
Make sure they're safe and not getting themselves into trouble down the road. Yeah, that makes sense. Those are the big questions that I have for the 2-1 buy down program. Now, does anybody does any lender offer this, or is it just specific
conventional? No, it's a Fannie Mae thing. So it's a government program that they allow. So most all of us, even the banks, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they sell directly to Fannie Mae.
Okay.
This is probably anybody that's going to be conventional. Credit score is 680. So they have to have a 680 credit score, and they have to be buying their own primary residence. So if they're buying an investment property, that's not going to work.
Gotcha.
But any of our first-time home buyers, any of our second-time home buyers, this is, it's just worth, if you're going to ask the seller, you want them to do something for you as a buyer, you want them to do something for you, ask, hey, will you buy down my interest rate? Will you give me $3,000 or $5,000 or $7,000 to buy down my rate? And then as a seller, hey, instead of taking a price reduction, what creative things can we use to be different? And what creative things can we do to help this buyer?
Right.
And most of them want to help, right? They want to sell their house, but they want to help, and they want somebody to fall in love with their place and love it like they do. So why not help them out?
Yeah.
Give them a cheaper payment. So for 2 years, it's 2% lower. 1 year, it's 1% lower. And then eventually it goes back up to what it would be today.
Yeah. Man. So for that example that you're doing right now with that $200,000 home, or did you already quote one recently where, like, how much would a 2-1 buy down cost, like on a $400,000 house?
We did a real number. I think it was $7,000 for the 2
Okay.
years.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, that's not bad. I mean,
but price reductions are more than that.
Yeah.
When you guys do price reductions, you might do 10, 15, 20. You guys do a lot. So I would say for any of our sellers out there, ask the question, what would it cost me? They can even do a 1 buy down. So for 1% for 1 year, say you're going to take it down $5,000, then let's see how much that would give the buyer.
Yeah.
So it's the difference in the cost is the difference in the monthly payment. So if the current rates is 6% and then we're buying it down to 5%, the cost is the principal and interest, the difference for the 1 year. So it's easy to calculate. But any lender could do it, but it's easy for anybody to calculate.
And it changes every week, right? Like these numbers change pretty much every week, how much it costs? Or
no, it's just the difference. It's just a matter of what the rate would be. But even if the rate is 7 to 6 or 8 to 7, it's just the difference in here's what your payment would be at 6. Here's what your payment would be at 5. The principal and interest. The difference is the cost to the seller.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, this sounds pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of kind of talking to an expert like you and saying, hey, what does it look like for me to pay that down, and maybe go from there. But I don't think I have anything else on the 2-1 buy down program unless you have like last minute, hey, I forgot to mention this. Yep. Okay, cool. The next one I wanted to talk about was discount points. Because you said that VA and FHA loans were not eligible for the 2-1 buy down program. We are hearing a lot of people offering paying down discount points. Can you tell us a little bit of what a discount point is, how much it costs, and what does it do?
So the discount point is something that we've always had, right? The word is, hey, do you want to buy points? Do you want to do discount points? Do you want to buy it down? So that's always been the term. We've always had it. It's been since the beginning of time. It's for all loans. It's going to be our conventionals. It's going to be our VA. It's going to be our FHA. But this is really something that we can use for our veterans because the seller, as always, can always contribute to a buyer's closing cost and prepaids. The limit is 3% that they can buy in points. So each percentage point it's 1% of the loan. Each discount point is 1% of the loan. But each discount point is going to save the buyer maybe a quarter, maybe 0.3%. So right now, if the seller says, you know what, I'm going to give them 2 points, we would take the loan amount of say 200,000 times 3 points, that's $6,000. Take $500,000 times 3 points, it's 15 grand. I'm going to pay for the buyers closing cost and prepaids up to 3% in discount points. And, so it's just a way of lowering the rate. The benefit of this one is that it's forever. So if we have somebody that's going to stay in the home for a long period of time, this one would be for the life of the loan. So if the rate was, say, same example, 6%, and we bought it down to 5.5%, it's 5.5% forever. It's not just the temporary buy down is a 2 year and a 1 year. The discount points is forever,
Gotcha.
Which is really great for somebody who's going to keep the home a long period of time, right? You're going to keep it 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. That lower rate over time ends up to be a lot of money.
Yeah. And so like behind the scenes with the discount point, they're just prepaying interest, right? Is that what it comes down to?
Yes, you're spending money to save money.
Spending money to save money.
But if you can get the seller, same thing. Sellers want to help, buyers want help. So if a seller, instead of taking a price reduction, then if they just want to say, you know what, I'm going to buy down the buyer's rate 3%. So 3% of the price of the house, I'm going to give to the buyer for their closing costs. We just use that 3% and we take it and we get the buyer a lower rate.
Yeah.
In that case, the buyer's not spending their money.
Right.
Right. So they're spending somebody else's money and then they're saving money. So it's really wonderful when the seller will pay for it. And we come in markets where the sellers will pay, and then we come into markets where the sellers won't pay.
Like we were just 6 months ago.
Right. So we're just currently in a market where sellers are willing to help. So we might as well help the seller sell and help the buyers buy and get a better rate.
Yeah. Now, is there a maximum amount of points that can be bought? Like, let's say the seller contributed 3%. Can the buyer then come in and buy another 3%? Oh,
No, the max that the government says that you can buy down, and that's why the temporary buy down is a 2-1. It's 3, and then the other discount points is 3-2. So the max that a buyer can pay, a seller can pay is going to be 3%.
oh, okay. So
And
3.9.
discount points. Now, conventional, the limit is 3. For our VA loans, the limit is 4, meaning the seller could pay 4%, but we can only use 3% to the discount points.
Oh,
The rest could go to their prepaids or something different.
yeah. Helping them out with their closing costs.
And we've talked about this before. Seller can pay a buyer's debt. The buyer can have debt, and that 4% actually doesn't even count toward that. The 4% is toward a buyer's closing costs and prepaids. Debt is a different limit. So if we have a buyer that has something that they really need to be paid so that they qualify, the seller can help out with that as well.
No kidding. So, like, let's say the seller's like, I need to sell this house. I'm going to give you 4% on a VA loan here, but I see that you have a $15,000 car loan that you need to pay off in order to have a lower debt to income ratio. The seller can throw in the 4% and the 15,000.
There's a limit, but the 4% does not count to that
Whatever
limit.
that amount is. That's pretty cool. I don't think I need that.
Yeah, the paying down of debt does not count.
That's so interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think pretty much the discount points are pretty straightforward. I appreciate you breaking that down a little bit about like 1%. One discount point is 1% of the loan amount. Is it a loan amount or purchase price amount?
Loan amount.
Loan amount. So
And
loan
then it
amount.
usually brings the rate 1/4 to 3/8 usually for each one.
Okay. So it's not like a one discount point buys you 1% decrease. So
No, if rates are 6%, now they're going to probably go down to 5.75 or 5.6. That it doesn't go from 6 to 5.
yeah.
That's where the temporary buy down is really fun for a conventional loan, because
Yeah.
it does take it down. So when we're talking to sellers and talking to our buyers, we just have to state the difference of, we're doing a temporary buy down with a conventional loan. Are we going to do a discount point with a VA loan? Which one is better?
Yeah.
And even if we have a conventional, we would maybe run, how long are you keeping the home? You're going to keep the home 5 years. Okay, let's do the math. Does the 2-1 make sense, or does the discount points make sense?
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, that's why you need creative lenders like yourself, just be able to like talk about the differences and the different options available to them. That way they can see what's best for them. I think the next one I wanted to talk about was assumable loans. I know specifically, I work with a lot of veterans. And so when they buy a house, especially just buying it 2 or 3 years ago, the interest rates that some of them locked in were like sub 3, 2.5. I saw somebody had a 1.99 recently. And so if they're trying to, well, because at the closing table, they'll always say, hey, you got a VA loan, it's assumable. This may be really good for you down the road if you're in a rising interest rates. But now we're seeing that we're in that situation where somebody bought a house less than 3% and now they're selling them at 7% for loans. Can you tell us a little bit about what that assumable loan is? Is it easy to do? Is it pretty straightforward as it sounds like, or is it a little bit more complicated?
Both. It's easy and hard.
Yeah.
We've done a couple, and I would just say it's a great option as long as you have the time, right? You have the time for the assumption. I would say in a normal loan, we can close it really quick, 20, 25 days, 22, maybe 30 if we need something. And an assumption, we have to go through their servicer. So for example,
can you tell us what is a servicer?
That's what is who they're currently making their payment to.
Oh.
So say they're currently making their payment to Chase, then that's who they would have to go back to Chase. The seller would go back to Chase, back to Caliber, back to Bank of America, back to whoever they're currently with. They would go back to them and fill out the paperwork for the assumption. So the negative to it is that we're giving all of the control of the contract back to the seller's lender. So we can't control the timeline because we don't have the control over it. They're in control. So That's the negative. The positive, the wonderful part is that they do have, say they do have an interest rate of 1.199 or 2.2 or 2.5, they can give that to the new buyer. So same thing, the veteran says, you know what, I currently have 2.25. I'm going to let the new buyer assume it. The new buyer comes on, instead of whatever current rates are, 7, 8, 6, 9, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. They would get whatever the current seller has. So if that's the 2.25, they would take over that loan. Now, what it does for the seller, it does tie up their eligibility. So then that eligibility is tied up, that new buyer would take over their eligibility. So for the seller, that amount of their eligibility, say they bought a $400,000 house, that's tied up. Now, the VA will let you have 2 loans or 3 loans or 4 loans as long as you have the eligibility. But we're going to minus off that, whatever they have on their current house, we're going to minus that off. Now, some people don't care. They have plenty of room, or they have enough money to do another conventional loan, or for whatever reason, they don't care. So with the limits being so high right now with the VA, you can let your current home go to the new buyer, let them have your 2.25, and you can go out and buy a new home.
And what happens if the person assuming the loan is also a veteran? Can they transfer the eligibility?
We would switch it.
Okay, so then
then that's all the positives. Then that's all the positives, right? Because you would switch the eligibility. The seller would be clean 0 on their eligibility, meaning 100% again on their eligibility. And the new buyer would get their VA loan with the lower rate. So that's the best scenario. We just have to, but it would just go back again to the current servicer, whoever that is. And then we just have to go through their process. So the seller has to fill out some paperwork. The buyer has to fill out some paperwork. It's not hard. It's just time consuming.
Yeah.
Takes a minute. You just have to stay on them,
You're saying it could be like 60 to 90 days?
That's what I would say.
So just budget 3
Just
months.
budget.
And then hopefully it comes in sooner than that.
And then if it comes in at 60 or 45, everybody's doing a dance instead of,
The Snoopy dance?
Yes, exactly. It's my favorite, man. Isn't he so cute?
He's so cool.
He's so cute.
And
so
then,
I would say any of our sellers that have a VA loan, they just need to look at their next step. What are they wanting to do for their next, and do they need their eligibility? And if they don't need their eligibility, or they're going to have enough keeping their current home and buying another home, then yes, let the new buyer have your low rate. It's great. It's a great thing to do.
So what happens, let's say they bought that home a couple of years ago at that lower interest rate, and they bought it for $250,000, but they've listed it now for $450,000, which is not uncommon in C right now. So there essentially would be maybe a $200,000 delta there. How does this gap get filled up then?
The new buyer has to fill it. So it can be cash, or they can go out and get a second mortgage. That also takes time. So then they have, say there's a $200,000 gap, and the buyer has 100, and he's like, okay, I'm going to put 100 down. They still have to make up 100. They're going to have to go to a lender that does a second mortgage. And then, so you're going through the assumable process with the seller, and then you're going through the mortgage process with whoever you're going it through. So they all got to come together.
So at this point, so let's say you and I were working together with a buyer, and then we go and then we start exploring this VA assumable route. Are you essentially just out of this, no longer in this picture?
I'm out.
You're out. So that's kind of that's the tough part then too, right there. It's especially if you have a working relationship and you've established a good relationship with the buyer, and then all of a sudden well, I got to set you free now because you can't, you said you can't do second mortgages. Is that correct? Now, do a lot of lenders offer second mortgages, or is that very specific?
I think Bystar does second mortgages, Fifth Third, Ameris. That's the 3 that I know. That's it.
And those interest rates, I'm sure they're a little higher than probably a regular first mortgage, right?
Well, they're usually HELOCs. They're usually lines of credit, and then they would be based on prime. So they would be variable. So they're not usually a fixed second. I'm not saying that somebody out there doesn't offer them, but most of the second mortgages are going to be HELOCs. which are variable.
So it may not be the best option then. I mean, it sounds very casual, but now that we've had this conversation, it sounds very complicated and may not be a great option. Because I know of a lot of our veterans coming in, I mean, where are they going to get that extra cash? It's just to make, like, assume a loan. Now you're taking out this other loan, plus the timing. A lot of our folks that are coming into town that I got 30 or 45 days to put them in a house, like that may not be an option for them.
No, well, and also if we don't assume and we just do the normal old fashioned VA loan that we've always done, you can do 100% financing. Right.
Yeah.
So then they can keep their cash. They're not making up the difference. We control it. We control the whole process: appraisal, title, survey, we control everything, which has value. Especially, we just did the one. They had the baby. They couldn't stay in a hotel for 6 or 8 weeks while they were waiting, on an Assumable loan to be done.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's just like everything else. We're the experts. We're the advisors. We give them all the scenarios. We can do the assumable. You have this much cash. We can do a 2-1. We can do a normal discount, or we just do an old fashioned loan. Here's all the options. Which one is best for you and your family?
Yeah. And that's it. That's it. It's just a matter of, like, these are all my cards on the table. Like, what do you think we should do? Where are we at? And
even with the seller, same thing with the seller. We can offer a 2-1, we can offer a discount, we can offer your assumable loan, but we can do a price reduction.
Yeah.
Which one is best for you? What do you, everybody's different.
Yeah.
It's our job just to give the advice and give the data. We give the data and we give the knowledge, and then we help them with what is best for them.
Right.
That's going to be different. I think every single person we talk to over the next 3 months, and I think we're going to do combinations, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little sprinkle here, a little sprinkle there. Okay, this fits for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to. I think that's all I have for us today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I know you're busy day. I know how busy you are. So this is a lot of great information. I know we're definitely gonna be able to help equip a lot of people. Just gonna have that conversation with their lender. Hopefully they come on and reach out to you, Kristen Kennedy, or Success Mortgage Partners here in Jacksonville, Florida, crushing it with the VA folks. And I mean, obviously you do FHA and conventional, but I know we work a lot with VA. So I really appreciate everything you do for us and your help and your expert advice. And do you have any last minute things for anybody who's watching?
Anybody has any questions, just reach out and we'll give advice and help and answer all the questions. And any way we can make a difference, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.